She put a pot on she hair and gone. Them a the first one out on the dam. Basket on she head, bucket in each hand. Hold up on she frock, I wanna she grandson. To the market, them a go. For the morning, the day is dawning. For cock-a-crow to give the villagers a warning. Rise and shine, the birds them a sing. All animal take turn as them join in the waking. Cock-a-crow, dog-a-bark, donkey bray, horse and neigh, even duck-a-quack. Cock-a-crow, dog-a-bark, donkey bray, horse and neigh, even duck-a-quack. Come and hear this sweet story that tell the people about life in the country. All day a back down, me now a come home. Inaga jackass yard for fetch the load. Cockle shy hand, bag over shoulder, running by his side. A Rexy and Rover from the farm, them a come. Sun a go down but up the river. Some washing clothes, some folks are bathing at the water. Fisherman, they catch them a bring. From a canoe boat, man, them start offloading. Aymara, Kwakwari, Hail Baka Kuma Kuma, even Lokonani. Aymara, Kwakwari, Hail Baka Kuma Kuma, even Bangameri.
Hi, good evening, Straight Up family. My name is Sharma Solomon. I am sitting in this evening for your usual host, Mr. Mark Benchcop, who is performing some professional duties. I want the audience to know that outside of both Mark and I sharing that distinct, humbling honor of being parents, I must admire Mark's professional pursuit. So I think we can share in Mark's passion to acquire some more academics in terms of his pursuit of professional achievements. He is pursuing a higher degree in his academics, and I want to commend him for that. And I think we should all wish him well. And it is for that reason, from time to time, I am also going to be part of the program in giving support, in hosting, in sharing with you conversations on issues that are in our news, but are certainly affecting each and every Guyanese. And as I always say on this program, it is important that we be our brother's keeper. So this evening, I'll take this opportunity to say, as usual, the way I construct conversations and encourage for us to have conversations is so that we can highlight not only what the issues are, but where they're affecting us as Guyanese, and at the end of that, share perspectives on possible solutions. So I share the ideas. I look forward to have the response. I've said to Mark before we made this something that we do a little more frequent, that I like the program to be interactive. So this is not a scripted program, very unscripted. I hope that we could have a little more interaction, but because of that unscriptedness, the program from time to time will welcome guests. It will have perspectives from other opinion makers within our society. So this evening, I also because of two of the issues. And if you know, we try to break this program down, we share 4 issues and put perspectives to them. Two of them I want to entertain because they're very relevant in our news cycle and very, in not being very dramatic, but very detrimental in its application to us as a society if we are not focused on how we as Guyanese stay involved in these matters. So the second part of the program, I'd like to welcome Mr. Lincoln Lewis, who is the General Secretary of the Guyana Trade Unions Congress. And this is because coming up on Sunday, you have Labor Day. And because of what labor represents in our society for a predominantly working class society, in terms of our construct in public sector, whether you're a sugar worker, and we see now in the oil and gas economy, coming off of a COVID economy, and still in that current situation, we see where the frontline workers and nurses are pursuing greener pastures away from this economy, and why labor, why workers feel that they're not treated fairly. I think it's very important for us to put in perspective where labor is at the moment. And I don't believe we can get any better perspective than from one of the principals involved in the labor movement in Lincoln Lewis, but more in particular, that Sunday, 1st of May, represents the day in a very ideological understanding of what it means, not only for labor, but for every Guyanese, especially those within the working class, concept of how this society is structured. So whether you're a public servant, whether you're a police, soldier, your labor is crucial to turning the wheels of development of the nation, of the state. But what do you as workers receive in returns? The history of what labor represents, coming from giving birth to the political movement in the Anglo-Caribbean, and how that evolved in challenging the colonial and the colonial master. So I think it's important for us not only to put that in perspective, but to put in perspective where labor is at the moment. I know many people are of the opinion that labor has, over the years, have lost its relevance. Labor was in the forefront of moving this society in its construct of where Guyana as a cooperative republic identifies itself. So outside of the colonial representation that labor brought, the political representation that labor stood for, and currently where labor stands in its relevance, I think Lincoln is best able to give us that perspective. And one more addition to labor, it is where do we move from this point as to why we are where we are in terms of where labor is. How do we prepare for the challenges ahead as a society? How do we prepare for an oil and gas economy to ensure that workers are paid a fair share and treated equally, so there are mutual benefits in terms of those who are earning at the multinational, multilateral, multinational level, and locals in terms of our Guyanese and those workers who are working in the oil and gas sector. So those are things I would want to know, and I'm certain persons would want to know where labor finds its relevance. And we're not only speaking isolated, whether those are for in the public sector. I know Lincoln wouldn't speak for all labor, but I think he can put that in perspective for us. And the second issue that is of importance, So I am justifying why the program, as I had promised, have not taken on the direction of having a more interactive engagement with you, the audience, but because it's unscripted, we are going to, as issues arrive in terms of 1st of May, very relevant for this working class society, but a very recent issue also emerged, and its consequences for every single Guyanese, especially those who, again, have participated in turning the wheels of development for Guyana, whether you're a teacher, nurse, police, and your constitutional obligation to pay into NIS, and where the NIS is at the moment. I am so taken back by recent statements by the Vice President about why NIS is where it is, but in a very dismissive, and I just looked at the news item on Capital News reported by Ivor Wharton, and it was so reckless, it was so dismissive of the intelligence of Guyanese. I am in admiration of the gentleman who asked the question, and that is what I encourage in all these programs. Ask questions, have conversations. It is a gentleman who, it would be perceived, doesn't have an idea as to what he is saying, but is well aware as to where most of the people in the working sector and as a working class society would like to know where is the security net in terms of NIS that we have been obligated to pay into, and now being treated as reckless as its management in the past. We must appreciate that the investments made by NIS were advised against, were done in absence of oversight, were done without the involvement of consideration, and we ended up with CLICO. We ended up with the Barbies Bridge. Brothers and sisters in Region 6 are grateful for passage, but are now with the consequence of paying the rates of that toll, that even in Region 6, residents were asking the president if he's going to take the bridge because of the burden of paying the toll of crossing that bridge. So the investment itself doesn't bring in returns for NIS. CLICO doesn't bring in returns for NIS. And so many investments that were made in the name of NIS, and where NIS finds itself, that I would be grateful to know the gentleman's name, but he shares the sentiments of where many Guyanese, in terms of hope of what represents after work and retirement, NIS, is now being said that in this skyrocketing economy, whereas a pensioner, where your only resort of income, of being able to provide for yourself, unable to do more because of what life has brought on to you, the state where you have to retire, you are now looking forward to that means of income that you paid into. As someone who worked in the public sector, I am as concerned as the gentleman who asked the question, and as I am certain every teacher close to retirement, nurse, police, soldier, sugar worker, that you've paid your contribution into this massive fund. It was badly managed and handled. And now you're being told in a very reckless way, that is your answer. What is the answer? That we will not be able to increase any amount on that which you've paid into, notwithstanding the promises of all those investments to bring in return. We know fail, Calico failed, the Barbies River Bridge is still owed to NIS $1 billion. Now, you're being told we are not going to have an increase, notwithstanding cost of living is on the increase. Pensioners are concerned. And here it is, you're going to be told you cannot get an increase. The most we are trying to do is to keep it alive. Story done. Story done. You now have to wonder what takes me to that level that I'm able to take care of myself after retirement, and if I will be able to survive. So let's not forget those reports that said that we got Guyanese in 30% are most living in abject poverty. In an oil-rich economy is where we are going to find more Guyanese. And then to have that sort of response, I think every worker, every Guyanese should pay attention. So Lincoln Lewis, again, sat as one of the immediate past member of the board of NIS. So outside of the labor conversation, I don't think we can find one of the better candidates to speak on this issue of NIS, where it is at the moment, and what does that statement that was made by the vice president represents in terms of how concerned we should now be as workers about the state of NIS. So Lincoln is going to be here to share those two perspectives with us. I want to, however, before we get to Lincoln, to have a conversation or two on the US government on the 12th of April. And you know, I always say in the conversation that I have on this program, it's important to demonstrate where our domestic issues intersect with our international relation issues, and it shapes our foreign policies. So on the 12th of April, we had the US releasing its State Department report, which represents in essence its human rights report, and where different nations would find their various ranking. The issue with human rights, and for in particular myself and the people, especially in Region 10, that I once represented in terms of representing their interests and advancing their cause as a regional chairman, took deeply into consideration the issue of our rights as citizens, and how we were treated, and even the issue of fundamental in our Constitution is not only what the struggle was about in terms of Article 13, but the right to life, and that the state, instead of having conversations with citizens on their involvement in a constitutional issue such as Article 13, choose to instead not have a discourse and converse with residents, but send the state to murder. And this is in the Commission of Inquiry report of the 18th of July, murder citizens. So dearly to us is the state violating that principal right, which is the right to life of murdering 3 of its citizens in Shemrai, Allen, and Ron Somerset. So the 12th of April, this month, the US released its US State Department report. So last week, if we can remember, and we'll come to the report, but I want to prepare what takes place after these conversations. Because, I'm not saying only when we have the discussion, you have the rebuttal and the response from the government, but I'm certain we add to the conversation. And this is why I say to everybody, throw your voice in. It's good to see all those voices now speaking on Article 13 and ensuring that residents and every citizen is given a right to participate in the decision that impacts and affect their life and livelihood. It's good to see that. It's encouraging to see more of that. So you have to, when this is allowed for, participate. And this is the encouragement of every single person that listens. So what does that provoke? It provokes, as we saw earlier, as we took on the conversation last week on the IRI poll and what it represented for many Guyanese, demonstrating that Guyanese were living in abject poverty. The conversation on island gas was restricted to a few because of the absence of information. As I did, as I put forward as perspectives, and also the apathy of Guyanese based on lack of, or in fact, bad investments, as we now see unveiling with the issue of the NIS. Those were reasons that only 1% of Guyanese felt that they were interested in anything about island gas. So think, for example, we found 3 more wells in the past 48 hours. And I am quite certain many Guyanese don't feel as excited and as elated in their direct connection of what that means to their overall development, as much as you heard that response to the gentleman, as if to say the guy didn't know what he was speaking about when he said money can come from the consolidated fund. I was told that no, money don't come from out of the sky. Well, the guy know we found the oil. Give the money to the people. That's what the guy is literally saying. And we're being told no. So I think, yeah, we have to be very focused when we have these kind of conversations and extracting from reports such as IRI that we see now. Ms. Gail Teixeira, Minister on Governance, is now responding. So we may not be the people to provoke exclusively, but have the conversation. And I'm certain, as we saw the rebuttal and the response earlier this week, to say that that report is irrelevant. And the IRI was embraced dearly by this administration. And now, because they don't speak in favor of, they're irrelevant. Well, here comes the next report, which is the Human Rights Report. And I am certain if we all place our conversation on what this report is saying, just like the IRI poll, just like the USAID position, and all those various conversations, as I say, these are people, agencies closely aligned with institutions that mostly represent the principal policy, foreign policy maker of the United States, which is the United States State Department, that shape their opinion. They take these reports, they present their opinions on these reports. This is now going to be their opinion on the state of the issue of human rights and the government's handling of human rights. So I'll bring how we correlate the conversation of what we experienced in Region 10 and the continuous behavior of this administration in terms of the issue of the right to life. And up front in the report, it speaks about the state and the level of corruption within the state. And not only how that threatens the right to life, but how it contributed to the violations of the right to life. And we can only think of or in Boston and what occurred in the Essequibo Coast. The state, through the state arm, invaded the residence and assassinated a Guyanese citizen. We experienced that in Region 10. The report of the 18th of July said that the only people that were shooting, this is an exact quote, on the day of the 18th, was the Guyana police force. In this 2022, 2021, 10 years on, even in between government, we're back to the government doing the same thing, highlighted in the United States State's Department report released a few weeks ago, that the state continues to violate that principal constitutional right for every single Guyanese, which is the right to life. So we'll speak to Mr. Lewis shortly, but I want to wrap up on these two matters quickly in terms of where the United States State Department. So it speaks of corruption. It speaks of the state's continued even 10 years in between government. Still outlined in this report that they are violating the citizens of Guyana rights to issues such as the right to life, a fundamental right. And also in the report, it outlines where such thing as arbitrary detention. So you just pick citizens up and to keep them quiet. Only today we saw the former finance minister, Winston Jordan, who has been just dragged before the courts and then locked up for no reason. You know how chilling that is? That any Guyanese at any time could just be picked up and locked up. In that report, it outlined where, and it mentioned by name, Christopher Jones, even with an injunction, was picked up and nevertheless placed in handcuffs. This is a member of parliament. This is the chief whip. Again, Winston Jordan, Christopher Jones, any Guyanese could be picked up and locked up. This is what in the United States Human Rights Report of a few weeks ago is saying about the state of Guyana. That is the environment in which we exist. So these are not open accusations. These are areas where we visited 10 years ago in Region 10, and we know firsthand how much this state is prepared to violate the rights of citizens. And now we see a continuation of that. Let us not forget, there is another issue of the gentleman Sam Pat, and why I remembered Sam Pat and what occurred with them being shot up on, I think it's Sheriff Street or Mandela Avenue a few years ago, is because the gentleman, Mr. Fraser, he passed away a few weeks ago. It was very troubling. I listened to the interview that was done by his wife, and she said that the gentleman died in her arms. This is a matter that was outlined in the United States report on the issue of human rights. They captured that in essence what occurred to those young men. No weapons were found in their cars. In their car, a police officer is before, this is 2 incidents. We witnessed that in Region 10, where the state shot and killed 3 men. This is still happening in 2022, 2021. And it's been outlined in the report. Mr. Fraser's wife said that he died in her arms. She couldn't stop weeping. He suffered. He was paralyzed. Mr. Sampat died on the spot. The point is that at any given time, as Guyanese, we should feel very threatened and concerned that this could be any one of us. So I just wanted to bring that as, again, a perspective, but to say where we dealt with issues like that in Region 10, and we see that sort of atrocity in terms of the behavior of the state returning, is that we have to, you have to, as Guyanese outline, you have to understand. That's why, that is why I said it is important that we see the conversation being taken place on different violation of the issue of rights. We saw today the Amerindian people of Isineru, through the um, Organization of American State, won again their case on government's violation of our Amerindian brothers and sisters' rights to lands that they're entitled to. We see people taking the state on in terms of going to the courts. We have to let the state know that despite the atrocities, the Guyanese, like we did in Region 10, to the point that we had an agreement negotiated on by the region and the state to ensure that people don't have their rights violated in not increasing electricity rates, which may seem simple, but the right was to respect Article 13, that everyone should be involved in the decision-making process that impacts his or her life, and not have the state impede on that by bringing hardship. To date, we haven't paid our subsidies. People might say, but that's not something to be proud of. Well, let me say what. Our argument was not that we were and I'll say this constantly, we're unwilling to pay. It is that we were unable to pay, and we still are as a community. This government has brought no development to Region 10. Promises of 800 temporary jobs without saying where they're coming from, not improving the economic conditions of people. Those are not the tangibles that make people see bread and butter issue any easier in this region. So we understand just that sort of behavior and temperament, but we stood to say, you will not increase that, because we are not in a position to deal with that. Our voices must be heard. Today, that should be the call. Because least we end up dead in our homes or driving our cars, and members of the coercive arm of the state come and take our lives. It's in the report. It's in the report. And I hope that we hear, as we heard from Minister Teixeira on the IRI report, we hope to hear on this report, on this human rights report, that in this day and age, 2 weeks ago, our bilateral partner, our biggest partner with the most to lose in terms of investment in our state, who have always played a critical part in all of our electoral process, is saying to the government of Guyana, you're still violating the rights of citizens. So I wanted to make those 2 points. The report is there, where it places Guyana in terms of its human rights violation. There are many other issues. Just like last week, we didn't digest the IRI report in its totality. I encourage people to share and look at that. Likewise, I encourage people to look at the human rights report that is out, and how it places the government of Guyana in terms of the view from one of our principal bilateral partner in the United States government. But how does that also, as a segue into the other conversation piece, relates to the government's control over the state? And I saw earlier where the conversation was on the opposition leader, Aubrey Norton, is asking for more than just having a conversation with the president, but to have outlined areas of concern. Well, let me say this. The issues that we took 2 years, no commission, which fits into our conversation from last week about good governance and oversight. No commission is in place. Commissions that provide the sort of oversight, they appoint, they dismiss, they are the ones who make recommendations, whether it's the Public Service Commission, whether it is the Police Service Commission, whether it is the Judicial Service Commission, the Teacher Service Commission. So there is no governance structure that provides for promotions, that provides for oversight, that this government found fitting to put in. And the excuse was as childish, as dangerous as it was to the smooth functioning of the state in the area of good governance. Childish. You have to recognize me first before I meet with you. Well, there is no recognition. And we are at the point of speaking about a meeting. So Guyanese should have in their heads the importance of where this government places the issue of oversight and governance. And that fits directly into the conversation we had earlier on how they use that to abuse our rights as citizens. So you can dismiss workers, you can appoint commissioners of police, you can do as you like without oversight. You can hold the judiciary to ransom because you have taken away even appointments. You have taken away financial independence. So whether it's the the general office, everything has now been back into a position where there is little or no oversight. And even the PAC that provided that last bastion where the opposition held some consideration of oversight was taken away a few weeks ago in Parliament, when it was reduced that you have to get a quorum involving so many government ministers before you can have a meeting. So I would then take, what do we expect? We expect just what we see from the leader of the opposition. A very strong call to maintain that the issues that are going to be discussed take seriously the fact that the government fundamentally violated its rights based on breach of constitution, of not having these commissions in place and expanding that conversation about so many issues that are affecting Guyanese. So that would be my perspective on these commissions. And I think it's important for us as we look at the issue of good governance. We like, everybody speak about democracy, and democracy entails having free and fair elections. But democracy also entails having good governance. So we'll end that with there. But I'd like to bring in Mr. Lewis now for us to get on to the two issues that I believe within our philosophical approach to where we see society in terms of this being a working class society, and Labor Day is Sunday, 1st of May, and also the NIS issue for his perspective on them. So I don't know if Lincoln is with us at the moment. I know he was in the room earlier. I really wanted to share those issues earlier, but Lemon, is Lincoln on? So I don't see Lincoln on as yet, but I think we can start the conversation on the state of the trade union movement And once we have Mr. Lewis that is going to come in the room shortly, let me see. Yes, there he is. Good. All right, Lincoln, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine, man.
Good,
Preparing
good.
for preparing myself to intensify the struggle.
All right, good. I like that this is where we start in the conversation from, because I want, I like the concept of labor, a progressive labor movement, understanding the challenges that we have at the moment, and where it finds its relevance of dealing with those challenges and answering the question of some people, why have it not been able to deal with those challenges? Why have we not gotten labor? As in the past, labor generated the movement against the colonial struggle. Labor represented the early political movement in this society. Labor represented some of the earlier movements to ensure that workers received the rights and treatment that they were so lacking and neglected of. So, can you say now, as it relates to where we find ourselves, looking at the challenges now, and why have we not been able to still generate that sort of momentum?
Thank you. And thanks to the audience, to take your, don't take your bed, but take your time to listen to us tonight. Let me say to you that the pre the struggles in the colonial period of labor, it was a struggle that was united, where all the forces were united, and labor preceded the mass-based political parties, and the agenda that was established by labor included the issue of one man, one vote, internal self-government, 8-hour work day, and all these type of 40-hour work week, all these type of things were on it. Free education too, universal education, primary education, health care, all these things were in. When the labor movement, the mass-based political party, the first one, which was the PPP, came to power, came to fruition in 1950. What happens after then is that the labor movement handed to them a sizable part of their agenda. And we moved to have one man, one vote. First time in 53 we have had it. And we gave up more. That what we have done, we have allowed over the years by giving up or give more space to the politicians, or the politicians have reached to the point where they have taken so much space that even when you seek to speak to issues that impact the well-being of workers in this country, like if you talk about the issue about bad roads, communities without water, or poor health services, you're told that these are political issues and you must not speak to them. And the labor movement per se, over the years, have been muzzled by even the members of the movement.
I hear that, Lincoln. I like that thought. So you're saying the movement is with both internal and external forces that challenge what should be a collective approach to advance the issues of workers in a progressive way. Now, why I want you to let that thought be something to build on is because I want to know then, why do you believe in the interest of what is now a working class society? This is a workers based society. You know, it is labor that is turning the wheels of engine of development in this state. Why is it that we are not collectively appreciating that there is a sense of direction that all those forces that you spoke about must realize that to move the issues of workers and the cause of working people in this society, that they have to bring that together, as experience in the past taught them?
Let me tell you something. Let me just go back and make this point. An ideology is a belief. You must believe in something. What we have is a situation where the belief of the new, what we call, not elites, but the political operatives today, they believe that the union is only relevant to them when they are in opposition. The union must be there.
Why do you believe they arrived at that position?
Because I'm saying that,
that brings us to the area of relevance. You know, I want you to dispel, if you have to, the challenges that the union face, but nevertheless, why unions remain relevant, that we are celebrating the 1st of May. You know, so back to that. Mm-hmm.
Because we remain relevant today as we were then. Because you are dealing with human beings. And as people get to higher levels or in more privileged position, they are more likely to exploit the rights or exploit the individuals who are not as privileged as they are. At the workplace, they will always, the employer intent at the workplace is to make profit. And make profit regardless of the circumstances. And to make more profit on the backs of workers and pay them less. Right? So unions will always be relevant. People will always resist any forms of exploitation. We need to understand that. And so this comes from the
Go, sorry.
Yeah, this comes from the historical development of society. As society evolved, for instance, like today, you are having robots that are displacing. While you may have unemployment, there are robots and other forms to exploit and other acts of exploiting labor, making to maximize profit. Where you may find people who are working, 3 persons who are working in some agencies. We are prepared now to make it 2 persons. Whereas a government has a responsibility in managing the state's affair. May have the one of its prime objective would have to be working towards getting, to the dream of full employment, where you may not able to achieve it, but as far as practicable, have more people employed that they can meet at least the basic thing of bread and butter on the table.
All right, Lincoln, right? You point out hold a while. You point out a couple of things there. So we're trying to keep the conversation in the direction that we end up with actions. All right. You said the challenges of not having a united approach, but you pointed out the challenges of workers in the working place, even to the extent of being replaced. And I see that replacement as not only by machinery, but as local Guyanese workers. We hear repeatedly from this government of the importation of workers. We saw an Indian consultant, in fact, that is carrying out a study on labor in Guyana to see where we may need new workers and how that in terms of our working place. So we know the challenges of what is ahead of Guyanese workers. We see nurses in exodus leaving the shores of Guyana. The Minister of Health is making a desperate plea and even putting things in. So we know what's going on with public servants. We know the challenges. You outline the issue of unity. Then say to us now, what is Labour doing to ensure that the political movement or the civic society, where are you working to ensure that comes together to defend the issue of workers and the labor movement as we look to the continued defense of workers?
Let me tell you what. I always make the point, which is a point. We have to be united on principles, on universal principles. We have to be united on the issue of enforcing, like the ILO core labor standards, which talk about freedom of association, right to collective bargaining, occupational health and safety, right? Are three major areas in it, of coming with the 8 core labor standards, ILO labor standards. Let me tell you what. It is not only mouthing it, it's an implementation of it. It is honoring it. What we have in this system is a situation where we have a daunting task of dealing with governments that don't see the rights of workers as a priority. For instance, today you have a situation where the Minister of Labour will disregard, the current Minister of Labour, Mr. Hamilton, will disregard any letter coming from a set of unions on the issue of transgressions and violations, transgressing of workers' rights and violation of the laws, right? He will disregard your complaint. But if Gau comes tomorrow, for instance, with a complaint, he will drop everything and he will handle that, right? So rather than you have what you call a situation where the minister or the politicians are now what we call the facilitators in making sure that workers' grievances are handled and their rights are respected. You have a minister now who is working for a section of labor and ignore the other.
Which brings us to the point, Lincoln. I like that. So we know. I like that you're pointing out. Again, we understand the issue of unity that brings strength within the labor movement. In fact, that is the labor chant, if I could remember, solidarity forever. So you're looking for solidarity. You're looking for solidarity.
But you're not going. Well, let me tell you, Sharma, you're not going to. These are real things in society. I have to tell you of them. During the period of the coalition government, those unions that are in FITA, those unions, they worked assiduously with us, together with us, with the TUC. Now the government has changed, and the moment they've changed, that solidarity went.
So you're saying there's form but no substance, very little substance.
Yeah, we will talk about unity, but
All right.
There are people who do not believe in unity on
All right.
principles.
So
You
let
know,
me get this.
advancing principles and the cause.
Let me get this because we're wrapping this particular conversation up as we move to Labor Day preparations.
Yeah.
And where labor finds its relevance still, then what do we do about the current state of ensuring there is more substance to the form of solidarity and understanding the challenges that we have to deal with that we outline? Now we know that. What do we do? Ensuring that we say May Day remains relevant for the labor movement and for the working classes in Guyanese society.
First, I believe that one of the things that you have to go on a re-education, re-educating this workforce and society. People need to understand the trade union struggles. Let me tell you what. For people who are old as I may be, may tell you of the 1963 strike that we have had. They will tell you about that. But 1963 strike, you hadn't, the union in the sugar industry was the Manpower Citizens Association. It wasn't GAU. So you had a greater unity in labor that fought in the 1963 80-day strike, right? In 1999 strike, it was the unions in the public sector, which was the transport, the public service union, NOPSI, and PTW. Those were the unions that were fighting. And they were given solidarity by other unions that were out there. Like the teachers union, they came out around the same time to fight. What I'm saying to you is that what I'm saying to on this issue is that that success was because those unions lock arms and prepare to fight for what is they consider to be just and fair. What you have today is a situation where one group in another place supporting a political party, another group, the TUC is there, criticizing, critiquing whosoever whosoever in office. That's the difference.
So you're saying you're saying come Sunday we should expect more of the same. That
come Sunday, you're going to get two rallies.
Well,
two rallies. Let me tell you what.
The point I'm making.
Let me make this point.
Yeah, go.
The TUC was prepared from the outset to have one rally, one march, and one rally. And nobody can tell.
But notwithstanding, that might be true. And I like that. I like that the TUC is mature enough to recognize that solidarity forever means more in substance than it should just exist in form. That notwithstanding that sort of issue, as you said, training of young workers. This is a young workforce that we have. Public servants, these are young people. A lot of the history that you spoke about doesn't necessarily resonate with them in terms of what mobilized workers ideologically, situational wise, behind something like the 80 days struggle. We're looking at the 1st of May, and those sort of ideals and values existed then. What are we prepared to do to see within labor as workers, as a working force society that said, come 1st of May 2022, that we can expect to see some movement to deal with these challenges from labor? You're the General Secretary. You must have the ideas to share.
Let me tell you what. The ideals of labor in 19 the first in 1998, are still relevant today.
Mm.
We have been talking about 8-hour work day. Now we have a new group who have now moved it to 12-hour work day, and the government.
And in the case we
right?
got policeman had to work 20 hours a work day, and they're
Well,
shaming
they
the
were
people.
telling you, right? The question of 40-hour work week, right? It's
The question
not,
of basic wages
when we
and
fought for
the
that,
question of basic wages and salaries.
yeah, we talk about wages and salaries, and to build what we call
Collective
a
bargaining.
strong and viable working a strong and viable middle class, and that we were in that area in the late 60s, early 70s. We are now retreated from that position very rapidly. We are retreating from that position. And you know why we're retreating? Because there are people who do not want trade unions. Even in United States, the middle class, though, was built by trade unions and employers through collective bargaining. And we
We
don't
saw
want
the
that.
workers of Amazon fighting for the union. So we'll end it on
Yes.
that, Lincoln, that you're saying that come May 1st, notwithstanding the challenges, notwithstanding that we'll have 2 rallies, that Labour recognize the issues in the 70s are as relevant in 2022 as they were then in relation to workers' rights. So as a contributor to Labour, myself, and even paying into Labour dues and things like that, I am certain that workers would want to see Labour maintain its representation, first through the issue of training, getting young people. I like the issue of seeing the teachers union and where those elections went with more young people involved. I know that is part of your umbrella, the TUC. But again, that sort of training to get more people involved in the system, and at the same time working to build the issue of substance and not just form within the matter of solidarity. But Lincoln, we are just above the time. I know we digest the labor issue. I know the 1st of May remain pivotal to Guyana. Labor represents one of the 3 fundamental pillars within our society. Labor still represents financial management in many of those cooperative and credit unions. So I know labor is very relevant still in many areas that we haven't highlighted. But there was a statement that was made yesterday at an outreach that was done by the Vice President of Guyana. You sat on the board of NIS as one of the immediate past board members. I think you hold not only knowledge, but you owe some sort of insight, if you have, to any rebuttal, if you may, of what was said on 2 levels. That the board is in a defunct state, that it can only in this area of when cost of living is shooting up, inflation is on the rise, bread and butter issue remains the conversation of Guyanese. That the vice president is saying the most we can do with this fund is just to maintain you, but don't increase it to deal with those challenges. Can you say to us on that first point that we're at that defunct state? And then the reason that we're at this defunct state is because 7,000 sugar workers, rather than the issue of investment in CLECO and others, you sat inside. Are we there where the vice president say we are?
Let me tell you something. I don't know. I believe the government may want to close up the NIS. I believe so. They have been there 23 years prior to this storm here. And I read that he said that the problem started, virtually saying the problem started in 2015. No, did not follow. Over the years that the actuarial studies were conducted and recommendations were made for increase in contribution to the NIS, nearly 90% of the time the PPP government refused to implement those recommendations prior to them coming out of government in 2015. They refused along the way. On this question that when the government, when the NIS begin to struggle, it is not 2015. It's a long time now. But this is a government that, you know, in 1969 when NIS started, the same political party that formed this government opposed it, vehemently opposed it. They said to the members, they said to the supporters that don't support it, don't contribute to it.
Well, we know that even up to today, even though the president, the vice president is saying the 7,000 workers were...
Let me tell you what.
From Gawu.
This
we know
man...
that Gawu was always a delinquent payer into NIS. It's on record.
The sugar industry. When I joined the board, the NIS had stopped during that time, was reluctant to pay benefits to sugar workers because there were hundreds of millions of dollars owed to NIS.
I'm sorry.
It was during Jordan period.
Let me apologize. This would be Gaisuku indeed.
Gaisuku. It was
$100
million owed to NIS. Yes, it was Jordan as Minister of Finance who the NIS engaged, and they worked with the government and Gaisuku and NIS for those payments to be made. It was during that period that we the 7,000 workers, the 7,000 workers, Sharma. The 7,000 workers have nothing to do. 7,000 workers have nothing to do with the liability that was created by Gaisuku. And apart from that, let me tell you, there's a fault with the NIS. The NIS is not permitted to invest outside of this country unless the minister gives the permission. When you pick up money from the NIS, when the NIS picks up money, it goes to one of the banks and he put it in as a fixed deposit. And in some cases, the most it will get is a 2% interest rate. At 2%. So what happens is that you people are living longer. So they contribute, so pension had to pay to them longer than what was expected when it was established. Recognizing all of that, this TUC, write both Jagdeo and Granger and tell them to bail out the NIS. We even made a recommendation now that you get oil. What should happen?
Let me go straight to the core of what sparked this conversation. The gentleman said it, and that's the conversation. We believe the ordinary Guyanese don't have an understanding. That the guy said the money could be found in the consolidated fund means then what is in there increase the NIS so that we can have increased dividends. That is what the argument of this.
But I said, rather than taking this money from the oil revenue now And you're handing it out like you're like Santa Claus. You're walking around and you're handing out money like Santa Claus. You ain't me Santa Claus. Me can give you money. So give you money. Take that money, some of that money, and put it inside the NIS, bail it out. And these are the issues. But I'll tell you what happened.
Nevertheless, you're
Because
bailing out.
we are so divided politically in this country. We be divided politically and other forms. That some people who will say NIS must pay, but they don't want to tell the government that the money is there. Put some money inside the consolidated, inside the NIS to float it. We even talk. What can happen? We talk. This is a country.
Notwithstanding this government's bad handling to begin with of that fund, as we outlined. So even though we're bailing out, because this would become, as I mentioned at the beginning of this show, tens of thousands of Guyanese workers, past, present, and those in the future to come, have a threat of the absence of any benefits after work in the collapse of NIS because of poor management. And then
but that's the only safety net that we have in this country that can help us. And when at the inception, when NIS was established under Forbes Burnham, is that it had in place, and it still have in place, as some provision for unemployment benefit. And that is an area that we must insist that it be activated.
The VP is saying that outside of, and this is what I want to know from you, Lincoln. As we look forward. You were there on the board. The board sits just under the Minister of Finance, of which the Finance Ministry manages the NIS. As we look forward to where those reports, those recommendations that would have been made by the board, whether through reports or at statutory meetings, do we see the sort of step by step, if not step by step, but actions to be taken to ensure that the NIS remains viable?
The action the only way you can get action with NIS, you have to fight the political directorate. You have to challenge them. That is where people got to do it. Workers got to do that. Don't believe that they are going to earn everything, because I'm going to tell you something. They have a way. They have a way. Anything that was established by another government or under Burnham himself, Burnham too, is that they feel that is irrelevant and we go break it up. That's his story. So we have to challenge them. And these are matters that Labor Day we got to address.
I like how we segue and we got both issues to represent the one, which becomes the issue of labor. First, in its representation from the trade union movement, the unions and its relevance, where 2022 and 1st of May 2022 finds the union and its position in moving forward. But where other issues intersect to threaten workers and labor, such as that safety net in the NIS. I think your challenges are many. I see our time. I don't know, Lemon, if we have any more time. How much more time do we have? Because I really want to get into this matter of the NIS as a very detailed conversation so that we appreciate that tens of thousands of workers in the IRI report noted that Guyanese are at a state almost 30% in abject poverty. That's where we live, are now going to see this core of working people, labor, now be threatened in the collapse of NIS. You said before, come 1st of May, we will see where the state of labor is, notwithstanding two rallies, sorry. But at the level of the TUC, Lincoln, how do you see this as the challenges of our times and where your mind is? Your mind. I mean, when you do in IR and you do realism, there is a thing called levels of analysis. And the leadership is part of the first level before we get to the immediate environment, then to the external environment. So the leadership, where is your mind? Where is the minds of the leadership of the youth?
I want to tell you something. In the trade union, it depends on the circumstance or the issue. The leadership either come from the membership or the leadership come from the executive. On issues of this nature, we will have to educate people. People can't just sit down, and people when you give them information, they must be prepared to do something about the state of affairs. Well, that's what I'm expecting, that workers will respond. Workers, pensioners will respond to. There are a number of people who go, even in this society, the society where I know, people will go to a place to work and they tell you they don't want to pay NIS. And when they get into an accident, then they have nowhere to go or nothing to be done about their state of affairs. These are things we got to educate this society. And Sharma, I believe that what is being done here tonight, these are issues, these are forums like this must be replicated. We got to educate people about the state of affairs, that they want to do something about it. This NIS is a serious situation.
Well, I find it more troubling not only the potential outcome, but I find more troubling in the response from the VP, who managed or in fact mismanaged to the state that we are finding it threatening that you as a former member of the board is saying that it's likely or there is potential for collapse.
Yes, there is. There is. During the time that I've been there, nearly for some time, the general manager will come to the board and say, we don't have money to pay. We want to break, we have what we call it, a fixed deposit that takes place. We got to break it. But you break a fixed deposit, and when you're getting 2%, 2% is big in this society, right? Mm-hmm. So what you're doing is eating into what you have, right? You're not being able to raise contribution when the month comes to meet your expenses. You got to go and break and go into your savings to meet your current expenses. And that is what is serious. So I believe that the time has come for us not to sit silently about this issue. We need to let the workers know, the pensioners know, and we need to collectively see to do something about it. And don't just listen. It sounds nice. The vice president said, the NIS can't pay money, can't pay increases because it virtually bankrupt.
That is that.
So what the hell is he doing about it?
That is
what
that.
we elect them for?
That is
that.
To allow it
to
end of the
right?
statement. That is that.
You don't see his action as an indictment. And unless we can come out and be brutal on these guys, they're going to continue believing it's a nice thing. It's bankrupt. This thing started in 2015. What the hell you have been elected to do? Not to correct a situation, even if it started in 2015 and it is not consistent with what society expects. And that's what we're not doing. We got to be angry. We got to be angry about the management of our business is being conducted.
All right.
But you know what will happen? Tomorrow morning, you know where he was? He was at Bath Settlement, a support base, his support base. So he's comfortable making excuses.
I don't think he was, Lincoln. In all fairness to that gentleman, that very patriotic Guyanese gentleman, I said I would like to know his name. That gentleman was most...
I want to know, I understand, Sharma, but the question of the point I want to make to you, how many people support him?
Yeah, but here what, how many people support him? That one gentleman forced the opposition, or would have caused the opposition, to reflect on thinking, the state of this government's intention for such an important fund by releasing a statement this evening. Programs like these have started the conversation. Many Guyanese are now aware of the danger of the fund just by what they perceive to be someone within the stronghold. The point is, Lincoln, that people are not taking the issue of the management of the state lightly as most of the people in the politics and government circles believe. The gentleman then just asked a question. He understood, as you were saying, then what are you doing about it? Because you can. That is the thinking of most Guyanese. And I believe as we continue to empower through that very important medium you spoke about, education, it generates the interest, it provokes more Guyanese to become aware and conscious, not only about the issues, but as I mentioned earlier on the issue of human rights, how in Region 10 we demonstrated our definite involvement in the process of this decision-making issue of Article 13. Guyanese are going to come to that conscious state. But it requires, and this is why I look forward for the 1st of May, eagerly of what this movement that is still representing the working class of our society, labor, is going to say to Guyanese, because this is a very important matter.
Well, we're going to be there. We're going to be there.
All right. Good. So we're wrapping up, Lincoln. Thank you very much.
I want to encourage every Guyanese to be out on Labor Day. Come out. You don't have to get red and white. What is needed is your presence. We will want you to come out what we call the house economists, the women, encouraging you to come out pots and pans, because I know the prices are as an indication that we are condemning the prices, in the food stuff in the market. When you used to come with three bags for $10,000, now you gotta come with 2 bags for $20,000. We have to come out back our pots and pans, signaling to this government that we are dissatisfied cost of living that currently exists. They have a right to do better than they're doing. There was a time when we hadn't oil money.
Pots and pans.
Yes, we got to come out there. Bring the empty bags, the empty shopping bags. Let us demonstrate on. This must be a May Day, a Labor Day of not only the workers, but the workers, those who are currently employed, but those who were employed and those who are jobless. Come out. We must be able to demonstrate our disgust as to what is taking place.
So then, Lincoln, I would then say as a part of the encouragement, let me say thanks for your presence and your perspective for us on labor in itself and the movement, the issue of putting more substance to the form of solidarity. and just how you intend to deal with those challenges. And we see the challenges extend beyond current workers, but workers in the past and future workers in the management of one of the most important aspects of the safety measures for workers after they retire, which is NIS. And how all these matters converge and the challenges. So thanks, Lincoln, for putting those two very important matters into perspective. I also share with you and the movement, Solidarity Forever. We as Guyanese have to know to put the issues of our working people, our Guyanese brothers and sisters, before the matters that are within our own circles, and understand how we deal with those challenges. So thanks, Lincoln. Thanks to the audience for having us on this evening. And we look forward to sharing perspectives with you come next week. So stay blessed, stay safe. Thanks again, Lincoln. Lemon?
Thank you, my brother.
What is the difference between the ordinary thief and a political thief? Number one, the ordinary thief steals your money, your bag, your watch, and your jewelry, isn't it? But the political thief steals your future, your career, your education, your health, and your business.
Hello, this is attorney Shellen Washington, owner and founder of the Washington Law Firm, located at 455 Utica Avenue in Brooklyn, New York. We're specialized in medical malpractice, personal injuries, matrimonial law, and landlord and tenant. If you're in need of legal representation, please give us a call today. The number to call is 718-877-3100. Consultation is free at no cost to you. So call us today to see if we can be of any assistance to your legal needs. Again, the phone number to call us is 718-877-3100.
If you are looking to have your statutory declaration, affidavit of income, identity, damage or lost passport, lost license, tenancy agreement, agreement of settlement, power of attorney, last will and testament, and certification of documents, then you need to visit the Alistair Collins firm, located at the Killian Mall, 162 Lamaha Street in Georgetown, between Camp and Waterloo Street. Alistair Collins is a commissioner of oaths and a justice of the peace. Make certain you visit him or call for more information at 649-6410 or 685-6448 or 503-1451. And there's adequate parking available. Go down to the Alistair Collins firm and have all of your legal issues settled and brought to the fore. Alistair Collins firm. Contact them at alistaircollinsfirm.com.